Hi everyone, my name is Yemi Penn. If you don't know me, I am a curious rebel, meaning I'm curious about any and everything. The rebellious side is challenging status quo, inviting myself and you to have a different perspective, but always aiming to come from a place of compassion, even when the emotions are rife. And anger is a valid emotion, FYI. There's just a difference between rage. I say that because I don't know how I'm going to go with the rest of this conversation, and you might see the whole cycle of emotions. But as this is becoming quite regular, frustratingly, is the conversation about race. And as you might be able to tell from my body language, I think I'm leaning against the wall here because I do need something to hold me up because I'm tired of this dialogue. But best believe I won't be letting it go. I do know I need to look after myself, self-care. I don't have to be the one who solves everything. But as a minimum, I have a voice. It's the reason why I do the work I do. It's the reason why I've taken some really bold risks to change the trajectory of whatever we think a career was meant to look like. We are the ones we have been waiting for. If not me, then who? Although I don't have to do it alone. Racism in Australia is something we just need to keep talking about, and we need agitators on every spectrum of the man-made race to have these conversations. The discomfort around race and racism in Australia is actually really mind-boggling. I expressed a couple of weeks, months ago that my son had had 2 bouts of racism, comments made to him by other kids. And I put some posts on it, you can go back and you'll be able to see. However, yesterday I got notified of something significantly more harrowing. And this was in my daughter's school, secondary school, where a guy, 15, 16-year-old, was not happy about the fact that he hadn't been invited to a party that was being held by another student, 15, 16-year-old. She happens to be black, he happens to be white. He was so frustrated that with his teenage brain, which I know has its own challenges and limitations as it continues to grow and they figure out who they are. It's not an excuse, but if I was going to be curious, I think that plays a part. Decided to send a text message of his outrage. Unfortunately, his choice of words, and even more unfortunately, is the fact that he actually thinks this. He decided to use a lot of racist comments, making use of the N-word, extremely derogatory, homophobic comments. I can't even speak the words out, but I probably have put this in a post somewhere so you'll be able to see it either in the images. The last line in his sentence is what's harrowing. He said, "If slavery were to come back, I would buy her." And I'm still sitting with what that's doing to me. And I'll tell you, a whole range of emotions went through me. And they've said that, they've subsided a bit since. It's not even 24 hours, really rough night's sleep. But there was a lot of sadness, a bit of anger. And the anger came from, why aren't we talking about this? I need to get on the project. I need to get on this. I need to get on that. I need to speak about it. That's where the anger was from, is kind of like I want everyone to feel the pain and discomfort and the fact that this conversation has got to be had over and over again. When I moved out to Australia 8 years ago, people said, "Yeah, man, you don't go to Australia, it's racist and blah, blah, blah." And if you followed my story, I listened to them, but most of them hadn't lived in Australia. I've just finished watching the documentary by Rachel Perkins, Australian Wars, more knowledge that history never shared, just of how violent and brutal the wars were when the colonialists came over however many moons ago. And I'm sitting here watching this thinking, isn't this fact? Why are we not talking about this more? Why can't I see more statues up with the First Nations people who try to defend their land? There's so much I'm not even going to cover, but this, I'm assuming, was the reason why people said don't move to Australia. Now, I'm glad I moved because maybe I moved because I need to be the one to agitate and say, let's have this uncomfortable conversation. Let's sit with the discomfort. Because if a 15, 16-year-old boy actually has the neuron power, whatever the word is, but the nerves in the brain, to actually put together words that says, if slavery is brought back, I will buy her. Come on, what are we doing? That kid has a parent. That kid is in a school. That kid has friends. But here's the thing. Let's just say there's a percentage of 25% who potentially carry racist views, i.e. they think that their race is supreme to others, or they truly believe in this hierarchy where some dominate others. And I appreciate some may have relied on history. History has not always been right. There's been a lot of divisive measures, but I invite everyone to find their blind spots. Whatever view you have, try and find the alternative and just humor yourself and see, learn something you didn't know. But say there's 75% who don't think the way this young man did, who don't have racial prejudice tendencies. My question is, will you bear witness to my life and other people's life who are constantly under marginalization of some sort and speak up? This is just an example. We can come to that, and I'm going to tell you the next part of my dilemma. But this notion that it has to be the work of the people who are marginalized to do the work, I'm speaking to say, can we scrap that? Can we be better humans? Can we do better? And in our allyship work, actually just go home. Go home. I promise you, especially if you're non-BIPOC, i.e. you're not Black, Indigenous, or person of color, in your immediate family, there is likely to be someone who holds some form of racist view. I know, you're going to want to sit up and get uncomfortable and say, well, no, not me. Do I have bias? Absolutely. I gave a talk yesterday to some graduates, and I was listening and watching my monkey mind as my bias was there. I'm talking about holding up a double-sided mirror here, but right now I'm talking about race because it's one factor, especially in Australia. We have so many other causes and movements, and it comes to race, everyone just shrivels up. Is there something I don't know? Is there some sort of policy that's been discussed at a global level that everybody else knows about? I mean, did you get the memo? Because I fucking didn't. Why aren't we talking about it? Why isn't it a daily thing? And no, I don't want a month. I don't want a day. I don't want a week where we talk about race. It's got to be every day. It's been too damn long. Look at the land we're on. How are we not going to talk about race? I'm confused.com. Are your organizations talking about race? Yes, let's give it a nice pretty name and call it belonging. I have no qualms with that. I get we want to do that just a little bit so we can put everything in. But at some point, the same way we talk about gender equality, women, non-binary, transgender, the way we give those names, my beloved LinkedIn fam, we're going to have to give the name race and racism and start having conversations and be prepared for the range and the cycle of emotions. And we won't all have the answers. But for the majority who do not believe in white or any other form of supremacy over a race, go check with your immediate family. That could just be your homework. What are their views on race and racism? Talk about it. Find the most comfortable, heartwarming method to have that dialogue. And just maybe find out what you don't know, especially if you're listening to this and you are the person who has either learned or really has neutral views or, dare I say it, don't see color. Because when I talk about trauma, apparently if you do something about an event that potentially could be traumatizing, if you do something about it within the first 6 hours, then the impacts aren't as great. At the moment, this is my therapy. I'm talking to my phone, but hoping eventually it's talking to you. Then you've got 3 weeks and 6 weeks, and it starts to compound after that. I can't change that that young man saying that. Apparently, because my daughter, thank God she's my daughter, she found out about it, or said about her friend, and she gave him some, she put some real solid words that would have got him thinking. He came out, found her, and apologized profusely, and she's of the view that he really is sorry. But what makes me sad is they just want to bury it. They don't want to make a fuss. You know, the woman who has been sexually violated, who doesn't want to make a fuss. And then 10 years later, when she finds her voice and courage, she decides, okay, let me go for it, but it's already far gone and it's difficult. Or the man who's been alienated from his family and his kids. He's carrying too much shame, so he doesn't want to talk about it either. Until 10 years later, when he finds his voice and courage. I get why some people don't want to talk about it, and I'm sad. I'm sad that at this point in time, because I really do want to honor them and where they currently are in their stage of life. But what I can do is bring it to you, my LinkedIn family. The conversation starters just got to be enough. I'm a speaker, I'm a curious rebel. Invite me to come and speak to you and your organization. Let me start with your executive leaders. Do I not look refined enough, or do I not look the part? Possibly, but that's the reason why you should get me in. Let's be radically honest, and let's figure out how major forms of inequality is catastrophically impacting not just your people, but your bottom line. And maybe it's not. Maybe you're an organization that really doesn't see the link. Okay. Absolutely open to having your opinion. But I differ. I differ in opinion there. And I want to invite you to have an open mind, suspend your beliefs and judgment, and hear a different perspective. So do yourself and me a favor. While you sit in disbelief that someone can talk about when slavery comes back, first, laughter is a form of defense, FYI. I'm aware of that, but right now it's soothing, so I'm gonna roll with it. While that will shock you, don't go to gaslighting. Don't do it. Just, if you're listening to this and you are in any land that has been impacted by colonization, just go back to how deep this is. And yes, of course we should move on. And yes, we should be grateful. My goodness, so glad for everything I have, no question without a doubt. But to not acknowledge how I got it and do the work, the true work, we're having a fucking bubble bath if we think we're just gonna avoid it and keep on moving. Oh yeah, if you don't know, I got a potty mouth, but I've actually done really well. But acknowledgement is the first part. So avoid the gaslighting, because it just potentially means you even start to tell yourself you don't know just how deep racism, obviously in this instance as well, homophobia, and actually just having the conversation is one way of just unpicking. We don't have to change anybody, but if we can find the people that don't tolerate this, and that sense of security, that sense of safety, that sense of allyship, that sense of humanity, get stronger. You make existing systems and behaviors obsolete by creating new ones. And that's why I'm talking to you. Not a TED talk, but thank you for listening. Love, light, and all the healing.